All right, so the ASCII table. I'm going to go look at the README. I've got the ASCII thing out there. You could also Google it. Here's the ASCII table. So this is the encoding of letters that Java is using for the first 128. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fact that lowercase a is a 97 to my advantage. It turns out that these are all in order. So if I have a lowercase letter and subtract off 97 from it, that'll put it into the appropriate array slot if I have 0 through 25. So if I take the lowercase letter a, subtract 97, hey, that's a 0. If I take a lowercase b, subtract 97, that's going to make it a 1. Through the magic of mathematics. All right. I do have to make sure that if I take these uppercase letters, I'm going to have to change those to lowercase, because otherwise I'm going to be off. If I try and grab a 65, a capital A, that's going to give me an array of the bounds exception if I go off the end. So, let's see. I think I'm going to take this example at the top and alter this. I'll change the stuff at the bottom in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an array of 26. Because if you use your fingers, toes, and 6 other digits, then you will find that there are 26 letters in the alphabet. By default, this will set them all to be zeros. So array 0's value is a 0. Array 7's value is a 0. Array 25's value is a 0. Array 26 doesn't exist. It'll give you an out-of-bounds exception. So I take this array, I read in some line of text, and what I'd like to do is I'm going to walk through all the things in length. If it's a letter, because it better be a letter if I'm going to do something with this, the first thing I'm going to do is, actually, before I even do this, let's actually change everything in input to be lowercase. Input equals input dot to lowercase. There's a method for that. Blam, everything's lowercase. That's through the magic of Java, not the magic of math. Well, it's probably doing math. So if I type in any uppercase letters, it'll change them all to lowercase. I don't need this letters counter anymore. I'm going to be using my array to count up instead. So if this is a letter, what I can do is take that letter, it's a char. So let me create a temporary holder for that. Single letter. And set that equal to input.charat count2. So I'm just creating a variable that's going to temporarily hold this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my array, which has the clever name array. The thing that's in the square brackets here has got to be something that corresponds to the letter. In particular, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this single letter, be like, hey, you need to change into an integer. The way I do that is casting. It is a little like magic. It takes that char and makes it into a number. If it was a lowercase a, it is now number 97. If it was a tilde, it's whatever number tilde is on the ASCII chart. I'll subtract off 97. And now I need to add 1 to that slot. I'm going to spell it out, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut which will make your life easier for adding. So that will take that letter, subtract 97 off of it, and grab that slot out of the array. So the way I did the addition here is I take that slot, add 1 to it, and assign it back in. So I take out, for example, if this is a lowercase c, c happens to be a 99. So I take the lowercase c. Oops, I realized I have parentheses issues here. There we go. So I take this letter c, change it into a number. It's now a 99. 99 minus 97 in my world of mathematics is a 2. And it's going to grab that slot, 2. Whatever that value is, I add 1 to it, assign it back in. There is a faster way to do this. So Java has a few shortcuts for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Another way I could do this, which does exactly the same thing, is this, plus equals 1. That is a shortcut to add whatever is on the right side into that slot. If you're just adding 1, there's an even faster way to do it, which is that plus plus and a semicolon. The same is true for minus, so you can do minus equals and minus minus. There's a times equals and a divide equals, but there's no fast way to do that because, hey, times 1 doesn't mean anything. So the next thing that I'd like to do is, now that I have this counter, I'm going to have to walk through that entire array and print it out. So rather than just printing out one thing, I'm going to have to print out potentially all 26, if they're all filled up. In my example, you may notice that I'm not printing out anything that doesn't exist. I'm not saying the number of bees is 0. So I'm going to need another for loop to walk through this thing. By the way, there's a shortcut for loops. If you do FOR, control space, it'll say, hey, you want to iterate over that array? Yes, I do. So if you do for, control space, it'll do that. Now what I'd like to do is, if that slot is non-zero, I should print it out. If array bracket I is not equal to 0, let's print out that thing. Notice this for loop, they've switched the counter over to an I. It creates a new variable named I, sets it equal to 0. I is less than the length of the array. This is how you can tell how big an array is, by the way, array.length. It adds 1 every time. One thing I want to point out, if you're using a string, input.length is a method. It's got open and close parentheses on it. Arrays are goofy. It doesn't have a method. It has a variable named length. It doesn't have parentheses on it. That's an easy thing to mix up because Java should have been more consistent. It wasn't. All right. So let's see. What does this do? If I run this. All right. It prints out a bunch of numbers. It'd be nice if I could print out the letter that goes with that. What I have to do then is I have to basically reverse this function and change it back to a char and add 97 and change it to a char. So I'm going to do that in a temporary variable here. Single letter equals I plus 97. That thing needs to become a char. I'm going to add single letter plus a space plus that. Wow, that's awesome. Now it's 3 times as big as I want because I showed you 3 shortcuts. But I'm going to leave it at that and let you work on it individually. So some main skills that hopefully you've gotten from this: changing from chars to integers, integers back to chars, how to use for loops, how to use arrays, Let's see, anything else? Hopefully you know how to read in from a file. You know how to read in from the console. How to create counters, some shortcuts for addition. How to use wrappers and some of the utility methods. All right, so that should give you the basics of all the stuff you need. At this point, I'm going to leave it to you to do the individual pieces, and hopefully you'll be able to pick those up.